I used to think that working in a rich family's home would feel glamorous, almost cinematic. I imagined polished marble floors, gentle classical music drifting through the hallways, and people who said, "Thank you," like it mattered. That illusion lasted exactly 40 minutes into my first day. The Harlington estate wasn't a house, it was a kingdom. A glass and stone monument towering over the cliffside, with manicured gardens, a private pool, and a view of the entire bay, like it was theirs to own. And maybe it was. When you're that wealthy, nothing ever truly belongs to the public. I stepped inside with my crisp uniform, clutching my small notebook like it could protect me. I had taken the job because I needed steady income. After my mother's passing and the medical bills that followed, I was drowning. This housekeeping position promised decent pay and predictable hours. I thought it would give me stability. Instead, it gave me front row seats to the downfall of a dynasty. The first person I met was Mrs. Harlington, Victoria, the matriarch. Tall, sharply elegant, and terrifying in the way only a woman born into money can be. She looked at me as if she were inspecting a piece of furniture that didn't match the decor. "You'll address me as Mrs. Harlington," she said without offering her hand. "And you'll speak only when necessary. Respect the privacy of everyone in this household." I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." I learned quickly that the Harlington family was not merely wealthy, they were powerful. Old money powerful. Influential in every corner of the city powerful. And powerful families always have secrets. The second person I met was Adrian Harlington, her 24-year-old son. Unlike his mother, he smiled at me. A real smile.
Warm.
Almost too warm. "Don't let my mother scare you off," he whispered as he passed. "She scares everyone." It should have been a harmless comment, but the way he looked at me lingered, like he saw more than he was supposed to. On my third day, I found out who really ran the household. The head butler, Mr. Ellis. He had been with the Harlingtons for over 30 years, and he moved through the estate with the confidence of someone who possessed more authority than the owners. He taught me schedules, expectations, rules. He spoke softly, but his words were sharp. "Trust no one," he told me during my first evening shift. "Not the staff. And definitely not the family." I almost laughed, thinking he was being dramatic. But then I saw the truth for myself. It started with the screaming. The walls of the Harlington mansion were thick, but not thick enough to hide the arguments between Victoria and her husband, Charles. Their marriage, a polished public facade, was rotting inside. I heard them fight about money, reputation, affairs. Names I didn't recognize. Threats whispered through clenched teeth. 2 days later, I found a broken champagne glass in the upstairs hallway. The shards sparkled like diamonds. There was blood on the largest piece. But the strangest thing was how the staff reacted. They didn't react at all. No one gossiped. No one looked concerned. No one questioned anything. They moved silently, obediently, almost fearfully, as if this was normal. As if this was routine. A week into the job, I realized the Harlington estate was a beautiful cage. Every window was spotless, but every truth was dirty. Every smile had a shadow behind it. And every room whispered something I wasn't supposed to hear. Still, I kept my head down. I worked. I stayed quiet. I reminded myself that I needed the money. But then, everything changed. It was a Thursday evening when Victoria called me into her private study. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wild. "Close the door," she ordered.
I did.
She paced behind her desk, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles paled. "I need you to understand something," she said. "What you hear in this house stays in this house. What you see stays in this house. There will be no mistakes." "Yes, Mrs. Harlington." She stopped pacing, leaning in close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "If you betray this family in any way, you will regret it." My stomach nodded. I would never. Good. Then we understand each other. But we didn't. Because 3 hours later, when I went to deliver fresh linens to her suite, I saw something that froze me completely. Through the barely open door, Victoria stood over a man slumped in a chair, her husband. And he wasn't moving. His shirt was stained with something dark at the collar. Victoria was wiping her hands with a cloth.
Calm. Too calm.
I gasped louder than I meant to. Her head snapped toward the door. Our eyes met, and I realized it in one horrifying instant. I wasn't a maid anymore. I was a witness. And the Harlingtons didn't leave loose ends. I didn't remember dropping the linens. I didn't remember backing away from the door. All I knew was that I was suddenly standing in the hallway, breathless, my heart ricocheting against my ribs like it wanted to escape my body. Victoria Harlington had seen me. There was no doubt. Her expression, that icy, assessing stare, burned itself into my memory. She looked at me the way a hunter looks at an animal that accidentally stepped into the wrong clearing. I forced myself to walk calmly down the corridor, even though my legs trembled violently. Every instinct screamed at me to run.
Leave.
Never return. But where would I go? I needed this job. I needed income. The bills piling up at home weren't going to disappear just because a powerful woman might have murdered her husband in front of me. I went straight to the laundry room, locked the door behind me, and pressed my shaking hands against the cold metal table. This can't be happening. Nobody could be that calm unless... A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I froze. "Lena?" a familiar voice whispered. It was Adrian. He cracked the door open and slipped inside, glancing over his shoulder before closing it behind him. "You okay?" he asked softly.
No.
But I nodded anyway. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he added. I swallowed hard. I'm just tired." He studied me for a long moment, his eyebrows pulling together. "You know something happened tonight." He wasn't asking. He was stating a fact. My pulse spiked. "I don't know what you mean." Adrian exhaled slowly and leaned against the counter. "You're new, but even new staff can feel when something goes wrong in this house. And something definitely went wrong." His gaze was sharper than before, more calculated, as if he were trying to read my mind. "What did you hear?" he asked quietly. I was about to answer, or lie, when footsteps echoed in the hallway. Adrian straightened instantly. The door swung open. Mr. Ellis stepped inside without knocking, closing it gently behind him. His face was expressionless, but his eyes weren't. "Miss Lena," he said in a calm, almost too calm voice. "Mrs. Harlington would like to speak with you." My stomach dropped. Adrian's head snapped toward him. "Now? It's nearly midnight." Mr. Ellis didn't blink. She insisted. That word, insisted, wrapped around my chest like a cold fist. Adrian moved between us slightly. "Ellis, she's new. Whatever mother wants can wait until morning." Mr. Ellis's polite smile did nothing to soften the blade of his words. "You are free to discuss the matter with her yourself, Mr. Harlington. But Miss Lena will come with me now." Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but even he seemed to know better. His jaw clenched.
Fine.
"But I'm coming too." Ellis hesitated for half a second. The only sign he didn't like that idea, but he nodded. We walked through the hallways, the mansion eerily silent. The lights were dimmed, the air heavy. It felt like the house itself was watching. When we reached Victoria's study, Ellis opened the door for us. Victoria was there, alone, sitting behind her massive mahogany desk. Her husband's absence was louder than a scream. She gestured to me without smiling.
Lena, sit.
My knees nearly buckled, but I obeyed, lowering myself into the chair opposite her. Adrian hovered near the wall, arms crossed tightly. Victoria clasped her hands. "I want to clarify something," she began. "This household values loyalty, discretion, professionalism." Her gaze drilled into me. "And I need to be absolutely certain you understand what those words mean." I nodded, though my throat was dry. "Yes, Mrs. Harlington." Her lips curved, though it wasn't a smile. "You see, staff members sometimes misunderstand situations. They hear things. They see things. But trained staff know better than to jump to conclusions." My palms were damp. "Tonight, you were working near my private quarters," she continued. "Is there anything you wish to report?" The question wasn't innocent. It was a threat wrapped in silk. I forced myself to breathe. "No, ma'am. I said quietly. I have nothing to report. Victoria's eyes lingered on me for a long, silent moment, evaluating, dissecting, deciding. Finally, she nodded. Good. Then we have no problem. I exhaled shakily, but she wasn't done. Because problems, she added softly, don't last long in this house. Adrian stiffened. Mother. She ignored him. That will be all, Lena. You may return to your duties. That should have been the end. But as I stood to leave, Victoria's voice cut through the room once more. Oh, and one more thing, she said. I turned reluctantly. If you ever feel confused about what you think you saw, come directly to me. Her smile was razor-sharp. I would hate for there to be misunderstandings. She dismissed me with a flick of her fingers. I stepped out of the study, my pulse pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Adrian followed me out and caught my arm gently. Come with me, he whispered.
Now.
He pulled me toward the private elevator at the end of the hall. When the doors closed, he finally let out a breath. You're in danger, he said. I know, I whispered. No, he insisted. You don't. My mother isn't just strict. She's not just controlling. She's strategic. The elevator descended. If she thinks you know something, he continued, she will make sure you never repeat it. Cold fear washed over me. Then what should I do? I asked. Adrian looked at me with something between worry and desperation. You stay close to me, he said. As close as possible. The doors opened, and a gust of cold night air swept inside. Adrian stepped out first, then turned back toward me. Because if you're alone in this house, he said quietly, you won't survive. For the next 2 days, the mansion felt different. Not because the hallways changed or because the staff behaved any differently, but because I changed. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow made my pulse jump. Each time someone called my name, I turned expecting Victoria's voice behind me. I worked quietly, efficiently, keeping my head down the way Ellis recommended or warned. And yet, no matter how careful I was, I could feel eyes on me. The entire house felt alive, listening, waiting, not for me to slip, but for me to break. I barely slept. Each night, I replayed the muffled argument, the thud, the silence. There were moments I convinced myself I'd imagined everything. But the memory of Victoria's expression, calm, calculating, predatory, always brought me back. She knew what she had done. Worse, she knew what I had heard. The only person in the entire place who seemed to care about my fear was Adrian. He began showing up unexpectedly, in the laundry room, in the kitchen, even in the hallway outside my staff quarters. Just checking on you, he would say casually. But his eyes always searched my face for any sign that something had gone wrong. On the third night, I found him waiting at the service entrance, leaning against the wall like he'd been there for a while. You shouldn't walk alone after closing, he said. It's just the back hallway, I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. Adrian pushed off the wall. Come on, I want to show you something. I hesitated. Where? Somewhere no one else goes. A chill prickled down my arms. Why would we go there? He didn't answer. Instead, he unlocked a small door I'd never noticed before, tucked between 2 large cabinets in the service corridor. It creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase lit only by a faint yellow bulb. Trust me, he said. I wasn't sure I did, not fully. But something in his tone made refusing seem more dangerous than following. I stepped inside. The air was colder here, heavier. Adrian closed the door behind us, plunging us into a dim, suffocating silence. As he began descending the stairs, I followed closely, gripping the rail. Halfway down, I whispered, What is this place? An old wing of the estate, he said. Unused for decades. My grandfather had it sealed off. For what? For privacy, control, secrets. The word echoed down the stairwell. When we reached the bottom, Adrian flicked on another dim bulb. The room it illuminated was small, dusty, filled with old crates, covered furniture, and framed photographs leaning against the walls. But it wasn't the objects that made my breath catch. It was the wall ahead of me, covered in documents, timelines, newspaper clippings, and printed emails, pinned in neat lines. Financial records, property transfers, medical reports, all connected by thin red threads. A conspiracy web, except this one was real. Adrian watched me absorb it. "This," he said, "is what you need to understand about my mother." I stepped closer, reading the labels. Harlington Investments, fraudulent transfers. 5 employees dismissed after whistleblowing attempts. Domestic staff contract irregularities. Unexplained beneficiary changes. Then I saw it. Martin Harlington, sudden medical episodes, 18 months. My stomach twisted. "Your father," I whispered. "She's been doing something to him, hasn't she?" Adrian inhaled sharply, the pain in his expression raw. "Yes," he said quietly. "And I've been trying to prove it." I turned toward him. "Is that why you're watching her so closely?" "It's why she hates me," he corrected. "Because I know her too well." The realization struck me like a blow. "You think she killed him?" Adrian didn't speak. He didn't need to. Instead, he stepped closer to the board and tapped a specific document, an unsigned change of beneficiary form. "She needed witnesses," he said softly. 2 staff members. She pressured them for weeks. They refused. His jaw tightened. Both of them were fired. One disappeared. I felt ice crawling up my spine. "And now," Adrian continued, "she thinks you heard something you shouldn't have." I already knew that. I'd known since the night in her study. But hearing him say it made my chest constrict. "What does she plan to do?" I whispered. Adrian looked at me for a long moment, too long. Then he said, "I don't know. But when my mother is cornered, she reacts fast. And violently." My breath hitched. "So what do I do?" He faced me fully, stepping close enough that I could feel the warmth from his chest, even in the cold room. "You stay with me as much as possible," he said gently. "You don't wander alone. You don't ask questions. And no matter what you hear behind closed doors, you don't react." My throat tightened. "That's not a plan, Adrian. That's survival." "Yes," he murmured. "And right now, survival is all we can aim for." The bulb above flickered, once, twice, then steadied. I shivered. Adrian lowered his voice. "Lena, promise me you won't go anywhere near my mother without me."
I promise, I whispered.
He exhaled in relief. But before I could say anything else, footsteps sounded above us. Heavy, deliberate, approaching the hidden door. Adrian's face drained of color. He grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a row of tall crates, just as the door above creaked open. A beam of light cut down the stairs. A voice followed. "Ellis."
Calm.
Controlled.
Deadly.
"Miss Lena," he called softly. "Are you down here?" My blood froze. Adrian put a finger to his lips, his breathing shallow. Ellis took 1 step down the stairs. Another. "I need a word with you," he continued. "Mrs. Harlington insists." Adrian's grip on my wrist tightened. If Ellis found us here, we were done. Both of us. The footsteps grew closer. Careful. Measured. Like a man who already knew the answer, and just wanted to catch us in the act. My heart pounded as the footsteps drew closer. Ellis's calm, measured steps echoed in the narrow staircase, each one a reminder that any wrong move could be catastrophic. I pressed myself against the crates, Adrian holding me firmly, both of us silent and tense. Ellis's shadow passed under the flickering light. He paused, sniffing the air like a predator sensing prey. "I know someone is here," he said softly, almost to himself. "I can feel it." I wanted to shrink into the darkness, disappear into the dust and shadows, but Adrian's steady hand kept me grounded. "Not a sound," he whispered. "We survive. That's all that matters right now." Minutes stretched like hours. The air felt thicker, heavier. My breath was shallow, every heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then, a faint noise, a crate shifting beneath our hands, and Ellis's had snapped toward us. He didn't see us immediately. Instead, he circled the lower stairwell, peering into every corner, his flashlight slicing through the darkness. And then, just when my chest threatened to explode with panic, He turned and called out, "Lena, I know you're here."
Come out. Now.
Adrian's grip tightened, and his eyes met mine. "We have no choice," he said quietly. "We confront her. Together." I swallowed my fear and nodded. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. Adrian flanked me, his presence a shield of confidence I desperately needed. Ellis's eyes widened as he finally saw us, not in surprise, but recognition. "You," he said, his voice low. "I should have known you'd be brave enough to come down here." I clenched my fists, trying to steady the quiver in my voice. "It's over, Ellis. All of it. We know what Mrs. Harlington has done. We have proof, and the authorities are already on their way." His expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing his face. "Proof? You can't." Adrian stepped forward, pulling a thick folder from the briefcase I had left by the crates. He opened it, revealing photographs, documents, and digital evidence meticulously gathered over months. Contracts, transfers, medical reports, witness testimonies, all linking Mrs. Harlington to the manipulations and threats that had haunted this house for years. Ellis froze. His composure cracked. "You don't understand what you've done." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "You've spent years hiding behind lies and intimidation, manipulating everyone around you. But tonight, the house itself is witness to the truth. Every corner, every shadow, every secret exposed." The silence that followed was electric. The house seemed to breathe with us, walls echoing the weight of years of deceit finally unraveling. A distant siren wailed outside, growing louder with every passing second. The authorities were near. I could feel it, the justice I had longed for, arriving at last. Ellis's shoulders sagged.
He took a step back.
"You don't know what you're dealing with." "I do," Adrian said firmly. "And now it's your turn to answer for it." Then, the door to the hidden stairwell creaked open behind us. Mrs. Harlington appeared, her face pale but her eyes burning with fury. "Lena," she hissed. "How dare you?" I stepped forward, holding my head high.
Dare?
"I dare because I'm done being silenced. Done being afraid. I've watched every move you've made, collected every lie, and now the truth speaks for itself." Her fury was palpable, but so was her fear. For the first time, she realized that the control she had wielded for decades was gone. "You can't," she stammered. "I already have," I said quietly, and in that moment, the mansion itself seemed to sigh, as though acknowledging that justice had finally arrived. Within minutes, law enforcement officers filled the grand hall, verifying documents, photographing evidence, and ensuring that nothing could be tampered with. Mrs. Harlington and Ellis were led away, their empire of deceit collapsing with each step. Adrian took my hand as I looked around the house. The walls, the floors, the rooms I had loved and feared in equal measure seemed to hum with a quiet approval. Every secret had been unearthed, every betrayal accounted for. The mansion that had watched every move I made had finally witnessed the truth. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Years of fear, anger, and uncertainty melted away, replaced by something stronger: clarity, strength, and freedom. The morning sun began to filter through the large windows, casting golden light across the hardwood floors. The house, once a silent observer of manipulation and deceit, now felt alive with possibility. I knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. For the first time in my life, I felt in control. Not just of the mansion, but of my destiny. And with Adrian by my side, the future felt limitless. I smiled, stepping toward the balcony overlooking the gardens, inhaling the crisp, fresh air. The house had finally spoken, and I had finally listened. No more fear. No more secrets. Only the life I had fought for, reclaimed, and would never let go of again.